Perfect. Welcome everyone to the Town of Greater Napanee Committee of Adjustment for the 28th day of November 2023. I just want to remind everybody that this evening's Committee of Adjustment is being recorded and live streamed to the Town of Greater Napanee YouTube channel. Having said that, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll look for an adoption of the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Is there any disclosure a pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none. We'll look for a motion for the adoption of the minutes for the Committee of Adjustment on the 14th day of November 2023. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Norrie. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Land severance application. Land severance application PLCOR 2023-036 Old Hamburg Village Inc. 124 Hamburg Road. And before we get started, I'll just check in the body of the council chambers. Is there anybody here speaking for or against this application? Yeah, okay, folks, we'll give you an opportunity to come up and speak once Mr. Nobes does his presentation. So, okay, and I'll get you to provide your names and everything. Thank you. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, Worship. Items 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3 are all pertaining to the same property. And I'll talk about all of them, I guess, cohesively. So item 5.1 is looking to effectively create a 5.8 hectare parcel, which would represent phase 2 of the subdivision. So the intention with these applications is to parcel out each phase of the subdivision for financing and legal purposes. It doesn't change the draft approved layout, doesn't change anything that was previously approved by council. That's still being designed to support that layout and that built form. What this is doing is really just to itemize where each phase is to be located within those subdivision lands for technical purposes effectively. So staff have reviewed. We don't have any concern with regard to the request and the applications being made. We circulated the application to neighboring landowners. There are quite a number. We did receive a couple of comments and one letter has been included in the agenda under items 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3. And I believe that landowner is in attendance this evening. Predominant concerns are around conveyance of stormwater at the very southerly end of the property. That would consist of phase 3 of the development. That would be the 6.7 hectare parcel contemplated under item 5.3. So that water feature, that drainage corridor traverses through what would be phase 3. And staff are proposing that a condition be imposed on each of these applications to ensure that the concerns raised are able to be adequately addressed. Within the draft plan approval conditions back a couple of years by the previous term of council, one of the conditions of draft approval is that stormwater management plans be supplied to the municipality and the local conservation authority to address concerns such as this. So we're already protected to a degree under the draft approval conditions. This is in addition to that, just to address the concern of the landowner who had submitted the letter. So with that, I'm open to taking any questions, and I believe we can hear from any individuals in the audience that may wish to speak to the applications.
Great, thanks, Michael. First, we'll start off. Is there any questions of Michael with respect to this application? Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, Michael, just back to the stormwater. So although it's a condition, we don't have any idea of what that would entail as of yet. It's too early for this.
Through your Worship, under the draft plan approval, what was contemplated was a drainage corridor effectively to convey the storm flows that are coming under Old Hamburg Road at the southerly end of the site and convey them to the box culvert going under the CN main line. So there's a conceptual plan that was contemplated at the draft plan approval stage. And I know that the applicants are working towards getting a detailed design of this conveyance route. So it's currently in the works. We haven't yet reviewed it, but it's nearing completion effectively.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Councillor Pennell. Is there any questions of Michael at this point? Seeing none. Okay, folks, I guess you're not together. Maybe, ma'am, we'll give you the first opportunity if you want to come up and speak to 5.1. We'll just get you to provide your name and whether you're speaking for or against. Yeah, and sorry, we'll get you to, you can pull that microphone up fairly close. We can hear you very easily, but it's the folks at home that are going to want to hear you. So if you could pull that up and just speak into it, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Carla Mackey-Esden. I'm one of the adjacent landowners, and I sent a submission with the photographs showing the amount of water flowing through the property adjacent to us and on our property as well as a result of the spring runoff with winter conditions, frozen ground, and so on. So that's sort of a worst case scenario in terms of the what the photographs show. And we're concerned that the proposed development would make the conditions worsen. And we certainly don't want to see that happen because we've had flooding conditions on and off over the years, pre-development. So post-development, we expect that unless there's a really good stormwater containment plan in place for the proposed development, that it could worsen the situation and create more flooding problems within the area.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is there any questions or comments for Carly?
Carla.
Sorry, Carla. Sorry. And I don't want to try and pronounce your last name because I'll just mess that up too.
Mackey-Esden.
Okay. Is there any questions for Carla? Deputy Mayor Calver, go ahead.
Just looking at photo number 2, there is there's a box culvert there already going under Old Hamburg Road.
Mhm.
Where does it go after it goes under Hamburg Road? Where does it, do you know where it goes off to after that?
Yes, it goes through, there's a water course that runs through the tree line. And then it goes down under the railway tracks. There's another box culvert down there. Goes through the railway tracks, goes through the golf course, goes through the library, and then it goes into the Napanee River.
Okay, I was wondering if that was the same stream because I
It
got
is.
in-laws up there on Alfred
Yeah.
Street. Okay, and yeah, I was just, that's a lot of water there
It is.
for sure.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Calver. Is there any other questions or comments for Carla? Seeing none, thank you, ma'am. And we'll listen to a gentleman that's sitting behind you. So we'll give him an opportunity to speak as well. So.
Thank you.
Good evening. Oh, is it still on? Oh, there we go. Good evening. My name is Sean Legere, Senior Planner with RFA Planning Consultant. I'm the agent for the applications. I just have some points to add to my colleague here, that a detailed design has been, is again being worked on, but I had an opportunity to confirm what it includes. So it includes a proposed lot grading and drainage plan, a cross section to satisfy existing 100-year flows through the southern drainage ditch, which is the drainage ditch in question. That the flow calculations include the lands to the east of Old Hamburg Road, and that the existing conditions will be either sorry, we've confirmed that the culvert that was discussed under Old Hamburg Road, but also specifically the CN rail line, which is so that the drainage goes from east to west. And so we've confirmed each of those culverts in question have the capacity to handle the 100-year flow. For those who just aren't familiar, the 100-year flows are the maximum event that is required to be planned and engineered. And there's a matter of timing as well. But I just want to make clear that this is a very historical man-made drainage ditch, and it's currently not engineered. So what the applicant will be doing is engineering it to the flows of the area and doing all the proper, so they've done all the proper calculations, all the proper design work, So they've done that. So we're going to go from an unengineered ditch to an engineered ditch. So we're going to be able to handle everything and address the residents' concerns, and that the general thought process is that the issues that are occurring now will not be occurring going forward once the drainage ditch is relocated and constructed. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Sean. I believe Councillor Pennell's got a question for you, so. Go ahead,
Through your
Councillor Pennell.
worship, thank you. Sean, I'm just looking at the sketch that was given to us with the severed parcels. And when we look at the bottom of the sketch and we see where these residences are, there's an easement that's planned there. What is that easement going to be for? I see it's going to that ditch. Is that going to be water relief, or is it just to get to that ditch?
Through your worship, so that handles existing drainage. So that easement that's on the subject lands will be released, that portion of it anyway. So we no longer require it. The lot fabric will actually be going through that whole area. So that small portion of the easement that is on the subject lands will be released. And that the ditch will be relocated approximately 20 meters to the south. And to be engineered, we're providing a 20-meter corridor. It was a matter of comment from Quinte Conservation. They requested or required that we have a naturalized corridor. So that's what we've provided. And that 20 meters is a standard width to accommodate a naturalized corridor.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Through you, your worship. What is a naturalized corridor? Because I think that's going to answer what my question was originally. If you wouldn't mind explaining that a little more, thanks.
So right now it's an open ditch. It's vegetated. So essentially those conditions will be mimicked once it's reconstructed. It's going to be open for those flows, and it'll have a certain cross section to handle. So everything's gonna be open and to handle the flows that way, and it'll allow for what we call a riparian edge, so a green edge. And it will be vegetated. So there'll be, I can't recall, Michael, if there's a draft condition for that, whether a landscape plan is required. I can't recall specifically off the top of my head, but that was one of those things that it'll be vegetated. It won't be obviously as it is today, but it will be a riparian corridor, a green edge will be created. That's with the open ditch, so naturalized. Hopefully that answers your question through your worship.
Yep, I believe Michael wants to add to that.
Through your worship, yes, one special condition that was added to ensure that we are able to control landscaping is that a draft approval condition was that we get a landscaping plan to our satisfaction effectively to ensure we're happy with how that drainage feature is going to appear aesthetically and function from a conveyance perspective and ecologically as well. And I will note 20-meter width for that corridor is a fairly substantial width. It's not going to just be a large box effectively. There'd be some nice tapering, as good of tapering as can be. There needs to be enough elevation drop from Old Hamburg Road's culvert outlet to the inlet at CN, the CN main line. So that needs to be appropriately designed, which the condition as proposed would ensure is done satisfactorily.
Thanks, Michael. Go ahead, Councillor Hicks, and I'll go to Deputy Mayor Calvert.
Sorry, Your Honor, just one further question. So I see 20 meters wide, and approximately how deep would it be? I'm thinking more of that's the photos show a lot of water. So children, subdivision, dogs, the elderly, the potential for drowning or falling in. Is it going to be easy to get out of? Is it going to be fenced at any point? I'm just asking, I'm just curious as to how we make it safe.
Through your worship, those details are typically those level of details would be determined at the final plan approval stage during the review of the detailed design. Today, I wouldn't be able to tell you what the elevation difference is and the tapering of the slopes and those sort of details. But the proponent's engineer will be undertaking that assessment, putting forth a design for the municipality and ultimately council to consider for approval. So those considerations can be taken into account. What we're looking to do with that special condition and that we're talking about tonight is to ensure that we can physically accommodate that flow and contain it.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks and Deputy Mayor Calver.
So just to be clear, Michael, the engineered ditch is now going to actually be coming from the old Hamburg Road towards the railway versus going across Hamburg Road. Is that correct?
Through your worship, the ditch as it exists today, it connects the culvert under Old Hamburg Road to the culvert at the CN main line. This would be slightly shifting it to the south, but widening the actual corridor. So now it's you've got trees, you've got roots, you've got a whole lot of potential mess in there that could be causing conveyance issues. What this would allow is that the conveyance has a clear path of travel between Old Hamburg Road to that CN main line, so that you ideally don't have that backing up type issue. In essence, it should improve drastically the situation, that the existing conveyance.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Deputy Mayor Calver. Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
One last question. For both of you, I guess, has the golf course or CN Rail come back with any questions or concerns? I'm thinking if the flow is actually contained and directed in a very direct manner, is it going to affect what happens on the opposite side of the CN Rail? And could we be looking at potential problems along through the Alfred Street like along Alfred Street, that creek, and then across and down past the library?
Through your worship, so CN certainly has been, they've had eyes on this since the draft plan approval stage, and their typical response at that stage is during the final plan approval review, we want to see a very detailed stormwater plan to ensure our culvert is not going to be inundated and capacity exceeded. So the proponent's engineering team will be, I'm sure they're nearing the completion of that assessment. We haven't seen it today, but I know it's forthcoming. And we would be looking at existing conditions and conveyance downstream as well. We don't want to see a flooding through the golf course effectively, right? So we would have the ability to put in containment measures to restrict that flow if it makes sense. And while ensuring we're not going to have overtopping of the banks in this new corridor at the same time.
Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
If I may, Your Worship, just to add to that, I can confirm as well, we are currently completing a minor red line revision to the plan that was draft approved. And one of those changes is to actually enlarge the block for the stormwater pond through the detailed design process. So we have draft approval. And so now we're completing detailed design. And so through the detailed design process, that it was confirmed that we required some additional area in the pond through essentially more detailed work. And so the pond is actually, so the drainage ditch, I'll keep calling it a ditch, just handles the through drainage. It's the stormwater pond that will be handling all the drainage from the subdivision. So through that logic, the flow itself should not be increasing, because the increase in flow is going to the stormwater pond that we're providing, which is being enlarged to ensure that we can accommodate the 100-year flows, which is that maximum flow that's required for us to plan and engineer. So the other, just to reiterate once again, that this ditch is not engineered. That's on the southern area now. It was dug at some point in time, probably by the previous landowner. It currently does not have what we call positive drainage, But what we will be doing for the subdivision is creating that positive drainage that's not currently there. So we will be fixing the issue of the through drainage through that area of the site. And then the pond is being enlarged. We discovered needed to be to ensure that all of the drainage coming onto our property is properly engineered and handled.
Great. Go ahead, Michael.
Sorry, just one last point of clarification. The ditch at the southerly end is receiving some overland flow from this land as it exists today, but predominantly from lands far to the east in a large drainage catchment area that eventually make their way towards Old Hamburg Road, under the road, through this site, through CN and on. After the subdivision is finally fully developed, all of the lands within, all the lots within the subdivision are going to go to the pond that Mr. Leger is speaking about. This is going to just simply convey all of that water from the east through the site and on. So through the development of the subdivision, there's not going to be more water coming into this corridor. This is just to convey water from offsite through and on.
Great. Thanks. Is there any other questions with respect to this application? Seeing none, we've got a recommendation that the committee receive for information the technical report regarding application PLCOR 2023-036, and further that the application to create a 5.8 hectare vacant parcel be approved subject to the conditions that are before us this evening. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Shank. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed, motion's carried. Moving on to land severance application PLCOR 2023-037, Old Hamburg Village Inc. 124 Old Hamburg Road. And I think we've probably covered a lot of the details. Is there any questions of Michael with respect to this application? And then when we can also ask the folks that are here to speak for and against if there's any further questions with respect to that. Seeing none, and is there any further questions of the folks that are here to speak for and against? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that the committee receive for information the technical report regarding application PLCOR 2023-037, and further that the application to create a 3 hectare vacant parcel be approved subject to the conditions that are before us this evening. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed, motion's carried. 5.3, land severance application PLCOR 2023-038, Old Hamburg Village Inc. 124 Old Hamburg Road. And again, this is part 3 of the conversation that we had just earlier. Is there any questions of Michael or the folks that are here speaking for or against? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
Mike, as you well know, is with the other residents along this road, with the blasting they're going to have to do because it's very shallow, you know, into rock, that a hydrogeological study is going to be done before and after that. If there's any, you know, if any disruption of well water for any of the other residents along there, that then the proponent that's putting in the subdivision is going to have to run town water or have to mitigate any of those problems with their construction on this site. Is as long as that is in the draft plan or not the draft plan, the final subdivision agreement, as long as those residents are covered, then not a problem.
Through your worship, yes. So the subdivision, let me back up. There is a draft condition that hydrogeological study be undertaken to ensure that both construction activities and after construction and operation, if you will, of the subdivision, there's not going to be those impacts. If there is, the subdivision agreement requires minimum liability insurance, minimum, I can't remember the threshold number, but there is requirement that the proponent maintain in good standing liability insurance for damages to town property and third-party properties. In the event that an issue like that were to arise, then there is the insurance that would cover that remediation to a well, for example, or fix the solution by extending water if necessary. It's not anticipated, but those checks and balances will be addressed.
Yep, go ahead, Counselor Shank.
I just like the point of extending water because I didn't want to get into a insurance fighting back and forth. But like if they have to extend water to any of those residents that lose water because of the blasting or whatever, that, you know, as long as that's covered, then hey, not a problem.
Great, thanks, Counselor Shank. Is there any other further questions or comments or concerns? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation before us that the committee receive for information the technical report regarding application PLCOR 2023-038, and further that the application to create a 6.7 hectare vacant parcel be approved, subject to the conditions that are before us this evening. Moved by Counselor Pennell, seconded by Counselor Nori. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Land severance application, PLCOR 2023-060, Portland's Energy Center, Inc., 7143 Highway 33. And is there anyone here speaking for or against this application this evening? Seeing none, go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, Your Worship. This application before the committee is to sever the previously approved Phase 1 BESS lands under Atura's ownership and operation. The intention is for legal and technical purposes to operate the facility under a separate corporate umbrella, still controlled by Atura. As I believe there are separate partnerships that Atura has entered into. In order to do that, in order to operate that, they need a separate parcel for this land effectively. So this is pertaining specifically to the BESS Phase 1 that was approved in the earlier part of this year. On this parcel would still have the ability to install BESS Phase 2 if it is to be successful, but this is really contemplating creating the parcel given the fact that there is a contract in effect for the Phase 1 lands. Item 6.1 is relating to easements that is for transmission lines and access between Atura's property, this separate parcel that would be under Atura's essentially ownership and operation, and the OPG lands further to the west. So getting the transmission line through both of those parcels, getting access from Highway 33 through some OPG lands into this site, and vehicular access through all of the parcels. So effectively, it's just creating the lot for technical purposes. It more or less could function without this severance, but it's for the purposes of setting up a specific corporation to operate the facility under their corporate umbrella. Staff have no concern with the application. We've circulated it to technical agencies and neighboring property owners and haven't had any concern. That the MTO did request that a sightline analysis be completed if there were to be a new entrance installed along Highway 33. That's not the intention. A sightline analysis has just very recently been undertaken to confirm that the existing entrance, as shown on the site plan, is still operable and functional given today's standards for stopping distance and sightlines. So the MTO has received that document as requested.
Great, thanks, Michael. Is there any questions for Michael with respect to his presentation? And as I say that, I see we do have a young lady on our screen that is representing the applicant, so we can give her an opportunity to speak once Michael is done, if there's any questions of Michael. Counselor Shank.
So, as everybody is well aware, we have two other BESS or better energy storage systems available or coming up. This is the third one. It was on originally on Atura Power. So the way I'm reading into this, now they want to separate this land to make it basically like the other two on private land, because they're putting under a different business formula or another numbered company, but not still tying it into Atura, but running under Portland. All right. So basically they're doing the same thing that the other private properties are doing. All right. Leasing it. So they're going to be leasing this probably, or running this as a separate identity rather than having in one toll, because as soon as I see it being severed, all right, and having easements through their own property, all right, then now it's becoming a separate identity for book purposes. Right. So I just wanted to make sure everybody else is well aware of what they're doing. There's no different what any of the other two sites are doing also.
Go Go ahead, Michael.
Through your worship, I think we have the applicant's agent on the line who can clarify and confirm that.
Okay, ma'am, can you hear us?
Good evening, your worship. Yes, through you, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. I'm just going to get you to provide your name for us, and we can hear you very well. And once you give us your name, the floor will be yours.
For the record, my name is Jessica Jakubowski, Jakubowski, and I'm counsel to Portland's Energy Center, the owner of the lands that are fronting onto the north side of Loyalist Parkway, east of County Road 21, as well as OPG Generation Inc., Ontario Power Generation Inc., the owner of the lands abutting the Portland's Energy Center lands on the three sides. And through your worship, if I can have sharing screen capabilities, I think it would be helpful to take the committee through the technical severance and the requested easements.
Yeah, I think you do have that ability, if I'm not mistaken, Jessica. So go ahead.
Okay. Ask for your indulgence. And through your worship, I'm sharing my screen. I just want to ensure that your worship and committee are able to see the screen.
Yeah, we sure can. Yeah, it's before us here now. So go ahead.
Okay, so with respect to the first application, which is at item 5.4, this is for the proposed severance. It's for the PEC lands, which are outlined here in orange, and I'm leading through with my mouse. And this proposed severance would result in the parcel outlined here in yellow font. And this parcel would be in favor of the Napanee Bess Inc. And here is where we're proposing and seeking the easements of the utilities access, which is in the blue hatching. And the intent is for the Napanee Bess project to be located on this severed parcel outlined in yellow.
Great, thank you. Nope, there you go. Is that your presentation then, Jessica? And just if it is, just hang tight. We may have some questions.
Through your worship, I would like to continue through to the second application, which is at item 6.1, which identifies the two other easements. I'd also share my screen for that. I think it's easier to.
Yeah, okay,
explain.
we'll continue on, and then when we get to it, we can readdress it if we need to. So.
Perfect. So with the PEC, with the second application at item 6.1, this is for the creation of the two easements, which are outlined here in the green hatching. This is for the transmission and utilities easement, and this is for the vehicular access easement, which is shown in turquoise at the bottom right corner. And both of these easements would be over the OPG lands, which surround the PEC lands. So once again, the PEC lands are here in orange. The OPG lands are surrounding it to the west, north, and the east. And the two easements, the utilities easement and the vehicular access easement, would be over the OPG lands in favor of Napanee Bess. And with respect to the purpose of the applications before you today, they are, as my friend has mentioned, to allow for the construction of the battery energy storage system hence the BESS project. This will include the storage units, a transformer station, and connection facilities. It is our submission that the severance of the PEC lands, it is a logical and efficient use of the lands in order to facilitate the division of the existing Napanee generating station, which is here, which I'm circling here, and it would be on the retained PEC lands. As it relates to the severed parcel outlined in the yellow, this would be for the proposed BESS project. This is where it would be located. And the transmission and utilities easements, these will allow the existing infrastructure from Napanee generating station in order for the BESS project to connect to the grid and allow for the overall functioning of the energy distribution for the proposed BESS project. And this will be made possible through the proposed easements. As it relates to the vehicular access easement, the severed parcel, which is outlined in yellow for the BESS project, it is proposed, it will require its own access easement, and thus the proposed access easement here outlined in the turquoise. Currently, there is an existing laneway access that will be improved and paved with the creation of the access easement, which will be clarified. And to conclude, we've reviewed the staff report and recommendations, and we are in agreement. It is our respectful submission that the applications for consent to sever, together with the requested easements, support the orderly development of the property and comply with all of the matters that one must have regard to pursuant to section 5124 of the Planning Act, and that a plan of subdivision is not required in this instance. And those are my submissions. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yep, great. Just stick with us for a bit here, Jessica, and we'll see if council has any questions or comments with respect to your presentation. Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Jessica, thank you very much for that report. So I'm just looking here. So who is the exact owner of the lands as it is? Is it Portland Energy Center? And when you sever it off, who's going to be the owner? And what's that going to be called?
So currently, the owner of the lands outlined in orange is PEC, so Portland's Energy Center. And once the proposed severance is completed, then the severed parcel in yellow would be in favor of Napanee. It would be transferred to Napanee BESS. So that would be the owner.
Okay, so that would be the owner. And could that name change prior to the implication of this project?
I'm not aware of any name change.
Or could it be sold?
Owner of this parcel.
Or could it be sold to a different identity?
I can't speak to whether that is whether or not that could happen, but my clients have advised me that this is in favor of Napanee BESS.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. Is there any other questions or comments for Jessica with respect to her presentation? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
Yeah, Mike and Jess, a site plan agreement that hasn't started yet. Oh, the only reason why is because some of the residents that are very close to it, they're there's concerns because there's different changes that was supposed to have been, back to agricultural land. Now it's in the BESS, and now the construction site, the entrance there, it was supposed to have been back, deleted. Now it's back again. And so is there going to be a berm or trees or sound mitigation or anything else like that to solve any of the concerns that the other residents that might have that were very close by?
I can address that, your worship. There's an existing fairly well-established berm on the south side that's proposed to be enhanced, as well as the addition of a new berm running up the easterly side of this parcel. The site plan application hasn't yet been submitted. You know, there's a number of technical studies that need to be undertaken still. But those details will be reviewed during the site plan review stage. And I'm not entirely sure when that will be applied to the municipality, but at this point in time, we don't have those details, but we do have a commitment from Atura that berming and landscaping will be installed to address those concerns. Yes. And of course, sound mitigation as well. So noise studies will be required to address the noise aspect.
Great, thanks, Michael. Deputy Mayor Calver.
Yeah, through you, your worship. So with the berming you mentioned on the east side, are they also going to do any berming on the north side as well to protect any noise that may head to the neighbors to the north?
Through your worship, that level of detail will be reviewed at the noise study stage. So when the noise study is completed, the topographical changes in the vicinity will be taken into consideration, and location of houses in the vicinity. I believe there's a elevation increase as you go from south to north, and then it dips back down again closer to County Road 22. The commitment to install a new berm on the east side is simply due to the proximity of some existing residential lands or houses rather that are in existence to the east. So that was in response to the phase one proposal approximately a year ago now to address those concerns, and those have been carried forward to my understanding and will be incorporated into the site plan details.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Councillor Hicks.
Through you, your worship. Hi, Jessica. I have a question for you, and actually it's not about berms or the site plan at all. Can you tell me who owns what and who is a subsidiary and who is the parent company? Because I see there's OPG, there's Portland Energy Center, which actually operates a plant in Toronto, not in Napanee. And then we have Atura, who I think is a subsidiary of OPG. And I'm just wondering for myself and everyone else that may be watching, if you can just walk us through the hierarchy of the companies.
Through your worship, thank you for the question, Councillor. I'd like to just share my screen again. I think it's helpful to follow along with this. So if I caught the question entirely, it was with respect to the ownership of the lands before you today, between the PEC and the OPG applications. And so as identified in the sketch, which is found in both of the application packages, the lands that are outlined in the orange here, these are the lands that are owned by PEC. And the lands surrounding PEC, which is Portland's Energy Center, is owned by OPG. And I'm going to scroll to attachment 1, where it identifies the lands outlined here in red. These are owned by OPG. And then the severed lands in question are the PEC lands outlined in orange. And then the proposed parcel outlined in yellow, which would be for Napanee Bess. I hope I've clarified that. If not, I'm happy to answer further questions.
Councillor Hicks.
So Napanee Bess Inc. is owned by Atura? Is that what I understand?
Napanee Bess Inc. is its own entity. It is not owned by Atura Power.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further questions or comments with respect to this application? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation before us that the committee receive for information the technical report regarding application PLCOR 2023-038, and further that the application to sever 13.75 hectares 13.75 hectare parcel be granted subject to the conditions that are before us this evening. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed, motion's carried, and we'll just get you to hang tight because we now will do the easement application, Jessica, just in case there's some further questions. Up next is 6.1 easement application PLEASR 2023-061 Portland Energy Center Inc. 7143 Highway number 33 and 7263 Highway number 33. Michael, did you want to start?
Nothing further to add, Your Worship.
Yeah, I think we've probably covered most of it. Jessica, did you want to add anything further to this application?
Through your worship, nothing further to add, sir. I think I've gone through the proposed easements that are part of the OPG application. So nothing further from me.
Great, thank you. Is there any questions or comments of council with respect to this application? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation before us that the committee receive for information the technical report regarding application PLEASR 2023-061, and further that the application permit the creation of 2 easements be approved subject to the conditions that are before us this evening. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Norrie. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. And we'll look for a motion for adjournment of the Committee of Adjustment. Moved by Councillor Norrie, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, folks. We'll see you for the regular session of council in about 5 minutes.